Good evening, thank you. Thank you, Marina, because you already talked about a lot of things which I would like also to broaden. So my paper broadened somehow the subject on which I wrote in the magazine. You can read in the article. I was not talking about the Holocaust, which all of us knew, know. I wrote it on the occasion of Slovak national uprising in August, which was an anti-fascist uprising in Slovakia in '44, and also because of the day of commemoration of the Romani Holocaust, which is 2nd of August and which is not very known. My article focused more or less on the question of Roma, or the not just extermination but discrimination of Roma, but for all is about the processes which even today could lead to such extensive extermination as the Holocaust during the Second World War was. Let's start. Right before the last parliamentary elections, it was in June, I think, or May, a visitor to Bratislava or elsewhere in Slovakia could admire the creativeness of pre-election campaign on the billboards. Slovak National Party, Slovenská národná strana, largely considered as extremist, nationalist and racist, came up with the following slogan: "Not to feed those who do not want to work." This slogan was placed on the photo of a well-built Roma man with naked tattooed chest and golden chain on the neck. The party, which then constituted a governmental coalition, declaring itself social democrat and left-orientated, had to remove the billboard, being largely accused of propagation of racism by almost all media. At the time, the party chief Jan Slota had already traditionally been considered as a universally valid synonym of Slovak extremism and nationalism. Scarcely someone then or before put any attention to the proto-fascist speeches of then opposition deputy and late Minister of Home Office for the Christian Democratic Movement, Vladimír Palko, who after the march of extremism in the villages of eastern Slovakia with high amount of Roma inhabitants came up with an idea of compiling statistics of Romani criminality. Vladimír Palko was the same person who equally wanted or proposed to solve the problem of homosexuality by using the word final solution in a TV discussion a couple of years ago. Scarcely someone recalled the speeches of Hitler concerning Jews when listening to the French President Nicolas Sarkozy driving the Eastern European Roma out of France now in August or September. The sentence which Hitler said during the war was addressed to Americans, saying, "If you like Jews, well, take them all." The same was what the French President said today. If you like the Roma, take them home or take them away from France. Generally accepted are even the implicit racist statement of the present President of Parliament, Richard Sulik, talking about certain ethnic or about proposal of starting up the electronic cards for Roma for draw benefits. The statements of present Minister of Home Office, Daniel Lipšic, who is also from the right-wing Christian Democratic Movement, about flattening out illegal Roma settlements or creating a special police formation patrolling the Roma villages, for all in eastern Slovakia. In present-day Slovakia, where growing unemployment disturbs the certainty of lower middle class, the Roma population has once again become a major culprit of our material misfortune and a major synonym of our fear and cowardice. At the end of August, a whole family was killed off in Devinská Nová Ves, a suburb of Bratislava. The initial stupor and outrage was quickly replaced by a notable dose of understanding when the media ran the version that some of the victims might have been of Roma origin. In the widespread discourse and in the atmosphere where nobody would call himself a racist, people are calling for constructing walls and creating ghettos, recalling racial prejudices and even demanding a creation of their own state, Romani state or huge camp out of our territory. Maybe for those who doesn't have any information about the Holocaust of Roma population in present-day Slovakia, I would say that the term Roma Holocaust is not well accepted even by some personalities, ethnologists or anthropologists who dedicate to the Roma question. Partly also because there were huge deportation of Roma population from the territory of today's Slovakia, but that time during the Second World War it was part of Hungary. Those people were transported to the concentration camp in Ravensbrück and Buchenwald, and after the suppression of Slovak national uprising in 1944, there were also some work camps for Roma people. There were like waiting camps for being transported later to concentration camps. Nobody knows exactly how high was the number of exterminated Roma people, partly because nobody took care. It was not as a huge question as it was with the Jewish Holocaust. So, mass extermination is not a particularity of Second World War, even though Holocaust was only feasible as a product of modernity. In the book Modernity and the Holocaust, the sociologist Zygmunt Bauman says that to explain Holocaust as a phenomenon exclusively bound up with the Jewish experience during the Second World War would mean accepting that nothing similar could ever be repeated, or that it could not happen to anyone else besides Jews. The modern technologies which entered into our everyday reality in the course of 20th century, industrialization and modern forms of organization, bureaucracy, serve as a warrant that generally widespread and in the history repeated sociological and psychological mechanism of growth of extremism and its outfall into the most violent display could today happen within a few short years. Although we reflect the radicalization as a general phenomenon in Europe and USA, the focal point this time is not the West, but rather in the East, and very specifically in Middle Europa, which represents in a way a connecting road between the age-old cultural spheres of West and East, North and South. From this point of view also as a relation of center and periphery. In a growing extremism, all racially wedged arguments are being articulated as a fight for civilization. So we should maybe ask what such concept of civilization means. Founder of the socialist movement of Balkans, Svetozar Marković, already in 1871, satirized the so-called civilized world as being a creation of rich Englishmen and Frenchmen, all other representatives of capitalism, European monarchs, their generals and moguls, bankers of Vienna, and journalists of Belgrade. Now maybe I could add a notion that, well, of course he was referring to what was then considered the center and to what was then considered a periphery. This year French President Sarkozy wanted to send all the Roma out of the territory of France, it did not happen the first time in the history, and paradoxically, well, not ironically, it was another time in France. First time it was in 14th or 15th century, where all the Romas from Western Europe were expelled from the territory of Western Europe to our territory. Well, of course, they were moving from our territory from east to west, but later, after the Archbishop or Bishop of Paris signed this assignment, all of them had to come back to Eastern Europe, or so that's also one of the explanations why do we have so many Roma population in Central Europe or in Eastern Europe. Paradoxically, to today's situation, that time the territory of former Austro-Hungarian Empire was much more tolerant to the Gypsy people, to the Roma people, as well as Spain. That time also maybe partly periphery concerning the center, which was more or less concentrated in Germany and France. The history of modern world system is to a large extent history of expansion of precisely those elements. From a geopolitical view, the conflict between North and South is largely characterized by the conflict between colonizers and colonized, between the powerful rhetoric of progress, reason and technologies on one side, and the rural, rather clumsy, brainless and underdeveloped world on the other. According to this largely widespread and by the mainstream media ardently favoured view, the same could be said about the intransigent dispute between West and East. In both cases, the first is represented by white men associated with reason, progress, diligence, cleanness. In both cases, the second is associated rather with chaos of mostly colored people, mental deficiency, idleness, and of course, dirt. The first we call civilization, the second a threat to it. It would be easy to integrate whole Europe into this generalized view and push it into the northwestern sphere of what we for centuries have labeled as civilized and what is a historical consequence of Western European civilization. Europe itself has countries which historically feel like avant-garde of Western progress and victors, and countries that historically feel like victims, which, having never colonized the world, do not feel active responsibility for immoralities that maybe did not happen in their names, but with their silent consent, as it was the case of war fascist Slovak state, self-partly victim of a betrayal of the politics of appeasement signed in Munich. From this point of view, the violence caused by a feeling of being a colonized victim is not less dangerous than the violence originating in the feeling of superiority of colonizers. Colonialism was based on what Immanuel Wallerstein called the European universalism, and what persists in our mind as ever more valid idea.